Begin the mission.
Well, it's been a while. To some of you, it may have looked like I've been on a bit of a break. And while a break from everything would have certainly been nice, the reality is that I've been working on a new project, while also learning how to use a new video editor that is a lot more advanced than the one I've been using up until now. That's all I'm going to say about that from now though. Anyway, to get straight to the point of this video, let's talk about a view that a lot of players tend to have in GBO2. And that is that anything that's a level 3 and up is basically useless. The main reason for this belief is that a mobile suit that is a level 3 or higher is going to have less skills than a level 1 or 2 that is native to whatever cost range the level 3 is playing in. The reality, however, is a little more complicated. For the record, I disagree with this belief that level 3 and up mobile suits are useless, but even that is a little complicated as well. And that's what I'm going to discuss. So let's begin. First of all, yes, it is true that in most cases, the higher levels will have less skills for a player to work with. They may even have less weapons to work with. It may not even be a good idea for a newer and less skilled player to use them. Doing so could ruin their experience of first playing the game, resulting in them leaving and uninstalling the game after only a few matches. Using mobile suits with less skills can also make the game harder than it has to be. Suits with more skills can help newer players learn the ropes faster and can lead to overall more enjoyment. And thus, anything with a level 3 or higher should not even get a second thought, or even a first thought, right? If you've been following me for a while now, then you know I disagree with this idea. I said as much in my Alex video where I showed how it could hold its own in 600 cost matches, if you know how to use it properly. And really that's what it comes down to. If you know how to use a mobile suit well enough, then you should be able to hold your own in higher cost matches with the higher levels. Assuming luck is on your side, and let's all admit one thing here, whether we agree or disagree on other topics, luck is always going to be a determining factor in GBO2. There is no getting around the rock, paper, scissors aspect of the game. Therefore, the most important skill any player can have is that of their own. Only using mobile suits with the most skills can actually be harmful in some ways when it comes to developing your own skills. In short, you are relying on the skills of the mobile suit more than that of your own. This can lead to someone developing bad habits and having a negative view on other suits. The less suits you use, the less skills and knowledge of the game. Let's use the Jada for example. The Jada is a 450 cost general that has a decent amount of skills and a pretty good melee downswing. In no way is it a bad suit, but I see many players overuse it, and they almost never really perform above average with it. The reality is that the Jada is a very easy suit to use. Think of it like driving with an automatic transmission in a car. If that's all you've ever driven, you'll find that it's not the same as driving a stick shift. While I don't necessarily dislike the Jada or the GM3 powered, I consider them to be playing with training wheels. And there is nothing wrong if you like either of these suits, unless you're one of the GM3 powered players who can't control themselves with a friendly fire. What I'm trying to get at is that some players make the mistake of getting too used to and even too comfortable with some suits, that they then end up relying on a small selection of mobile suits. This can then lead them to think that the only way to perform well in any cost range is to have the most skills. The higher the cost range, the higher number of skills required. Now, for the most part, if you're a new player who has only just started learning the ropes, then there's nothing wrong with relying exclusively on suits with a wide variety of skills. But if you're someone who has been playing the game for years and likes to think of themselves as above average, then only relying on said mobile suits really doesn't look good on you. If you claim you can beat someone because your suit has a better skill set, then it wasn't exactly you who beat them in the end, but the suit. This applies more to the more competitive players, of course, and not the casuals who are really only looking for a little fun in a few matches. I myself am more on the casual side of things. That being said, when you play the game for as long as I have, running into the more competitive players is unavoidable. Anyways, back to the topic. There can be some real benefits to using the higher level mobile suits, especially in the higher cost matches. For some suits, like the Gundam, you're given more HP and higher level weapons that deal more damage. Some weapons for other suits also carry more ammo and possess longer range. These mobile suits also carry more space for custom parts, allowing for more customization options. Another important detail that I don't hear anyone really arguing is that most higher level mobile suits that can go into 600 cost matches and up can use primary ballistic weapons. Remember that in 600 and up, many suits and players are focusing on beam resistance. Since most suits native to those cost ranges mainly carry beam weapons, a ballistic weapon like a machine gun or even the Mark II's bazooka can do a decent amount of damage simply by bypassing the beam resistance. Now, I'm not going to tell a new player to use a level 5 or 6 on their first day, with the exception of 1 or 2 suits that I mentioned in a tutorial video that I did. Using such levels should be reserved for suits that you really like and have become very familiar with. I can take the level 4 Alex into 600 because I know it well. The same cannot be said for other players with the same suit. And the same can be said about me with other suits, like the assault gun tank, for example. I can't use the higher levels of it because I don't know it as well. Everyone is different. I'm not saying that using suits with a lot of skills is bad for the record. All I'm saying is that we shouldn't rule out the higher level mobile suits. I like to think of using level 4s and 5s as the final test to mastering a mobile suit. Only then can we say that we're above average with a specific suit, or at least that's the standard that I hold for myself. For me, I tend to do well with the level 4s and 5s that I like. I can do well with the level 4 GM Kai in a 350 match, and still do well in. It definitely has some disadvantages, and is pretty slow for a general at that cost range, but I still have a lot of fun with it. The GM Kai is not a suit that you want to sleep on ever. That's including if it's being used with the bazooka or even the beam spray gun. If you ever see someone using it, assume that they know what they're doing. Unless they have a low rank, of course. Even still, a GM Kai with the machine gun can deal a lot of damage. The bullpup machine gun is one of the best guns in the game. The GM command works in the same way. It's just faster and nimbler than the suit that I just talked about. I've taken the level 4 into 400 cost matches and have managed to hold my own. If you've seen my GM command video in a ranked brawl match, then you know what I'm talking about. Even its beam gun can do some damage, if you know how to use it. In this other match, I don't exactly do anything special, and I don't even get 3 or more kills, but it was nevertheless enough to get top scores on my team in 3 out of the 4 categories. The level 4 Gundam Mark II can also do some real damage in 650 cost matches. This is where the ballistic weapons can be used to get around the beam resistance that some suits have in 650 and 700. For this footage, I'm flying around in space and basically just having fun. And this is where the number of skills I feel begin to show their irrelevance in a way, because it's not about the number of skills, but more so about having the right skills that you need. The Mark II also has one big advantage that not many generals have, and that's its level 3 melee priority. And keep in mind that this footage right here was before the buff that it received about a month or 2 ago. The beam rifle of the Mark II is also pretty good. For 650, I just prefer to use a bazooka in space. The level 4 Hyakushiki can also be a monster in 700 cost matches. This is a real man's raid suit. It has no need for stealth or focused melee attacks. Hell, I tend to mostly use the shrapnel clay bazookas in these matches. If you saw my video on the shrapnel bazookas, then you know a little bit on how I tend to use them. Now, this first footage of me on Impact site was actually recorded months ago, and before the buff that was given to the Hyakushiki. And even then, I was having fun walking around, shooting and hitting all 3 classes. Unfortunately for me and my team, we didn't do well enough to get the win. I'm not blaming anyone, but there was some friendly fire going on in this match by a unicorn or 2 that clearly didn't help us. But the second match with the Hyakushiki was recorded fairly recently and after the buff, still level 4 and in a 700 cost match. And all I can say is that I had fun. It almost felt too easy. To be honest, I never ever felt like this suit needed some kind of buff. It always performed well for me. Still, I'm happy it did. Better a raid like this to get a buff than some other raid that has stealth or some multiple melee weapons, or a heavy focus melee. This is one of the good ones. I know support mains don't like any raids, but I'm telling you, the Hyakushiki is just as good as the G3. Keeping things on 700, I also take the level 4 GBO2 into matches from time to time. In terms of its performance, it's a little like the Mark II, but maybe with some more HP. This guy is a real brawler. And do not sleep on its head Vulcans. The head Vulcans are so impressive that they may in fact go against the Geneva Convention. The skilled players who know the GBO2 well know this about it. It can also use the level 4 bullpup machine gun. For me, however, I tend to stick with the beam rifle for that instant stun so that I can use the level 3 melee priority to the best of its ability. Another thing worth mentioning is that the GBO2 is one of those suits that debunks the idea that GBO2 is pay to win. When a skilled enough player takes the GBO2 into a 700 cost match, they can more than hold their own against the fancy and shinier native 700 cost suits. Now, I can go on listing other high-level mobile suits that can hold their own, but I think the king of all these might be the level 5 powered GM at 550. Now granted, it is no longer as dominant as it used to be, and it may even be time to give it a buff to address all the power creep that has since caught up to it over the years. But this boy can still have fun running around the maps with the level 5 bullpup machine gun, or even the GM rifle. This thing is as close to perfection as a GM grunt can get without having to rely on any gimmick. It is a straightforward mobile suit. What you see is what you get. The trick is being able to see and realize that true potential. I admit that I no longer use it as much as I once did, but when I do, I tend to have a smile on my face. There are of course other suits that I have no doubt some of you will write in the comments, and by all means, please do. Like the G3, Gundam, Full Armor Gundam, and so on and so on. Let's also not forget about the level 6 GM cannon that can still break legs at 400. Again, luck does still play a part in determining if someone does well with any of these suits, or if their team wins. but that can literally be set up on any other suit regardless if it's a level 1, or 4, or 5, or even 6. The maps also play a part, no doubt. Before I lose the plot any further and what I have to say turns into a rant, I'll end the video by saying that higher level mobile suits are not bad by any means if you have the personal skill and knowledge to know how to use whatever mobile suit it may be. New players may struggle more for having a lack of experience, but then again, they may be on equal footing assuming that the game is pairing new players with other new players. And although there's nothing wrong with using suits with more skills, using suits with less can potentially show you what you're really made of. It can force you to get creative and learn some new personal skills that you can apply to other suits. I'll use the Alex and Tristan for example. The Alex is the trainer, sort of like how some distant runners wear heavier shoes for practice and then use lighter shoes for the actual race. The Tristan being the lighter shoe for the race. If you do well with the level 4 Alex, you should then have no problem with the Tristan, since it has all the skills players wish the Alex had. It can also be a lot of fun when you outperform most, if not everyone, in a match who are using suits that have more skills than you. Okay, that's it for me. Time to get back to the things that I've been working on. As always, this has been Mobile Suit K9, signing off.